And just for purposes of transparency, I guess, Mr. Vic, did we post the meeting since we have more than 1, 2, 3, since we have 4 council members? Okay, so the meeting has been duly posted. I didn't do a formal agenda because this is not really a meeting, it's just a gathering, so we can just have some conversation about, why you out there? Peg, why you out there? Yeah.
Thought you quit.
She ain't quit. So the meeting is very informal, and so I didn't do an agenda because I didn't want to give the perception that it was, in fact, a meeting, because it's not. It's just an information gathering, things we need to talk about and consider, because we know that all over the country, particularly over the state of South Carolina, there's a lot of questions and negativity with regards to data centers. And I didn't want us to kick the can down the road and then it gets to the bottom and hit a brick wall, and then we're trying to decide where we're going to go, and communities are impacted. They had no notification. They're not aware of what's going on, and then everybody's in uproar. I believe in being proactive, and I believe in people coming to the table, having a conversation. As the representative, I don't have no money, no budget. I told the folk with Brookfield that's buying the plant over in Fairfield that y'all may have the money, but I have the mouth and I have the voice. And I'm going to use it for the citizens of Fairfield County and make sure that even if things come here that we have no control over, that it benefits Fairfield in a way that 40 years from now, our legacy will show that we did what was best for the county and we didn't just haphazardly or arbitrarily allow certain things to happen. So with that, I'm going to ask Bishop McBride to give us a prayer, and then after that, if we can get the presenters, because they're virtual, since we've had them waiting for a while. We'll get Bishop McBride to, yeah.
Let us pray. Father, we thank you for this day. It's a beautiful day that you've given us. We thank you, Lord, for allowing us to meet in this area. We thank you for, and we ask that you would lead our minds to do what is best for the people in this county. We give you all the glory and praise in Jesus' name. Amen.
Do we have the, Margaret, the presenters?
This room cannot do Zoom or Teams. We were never set up to do that. We have no ability to do that. I told Brett that yesterday, that we don't have any ability for that. Susan, the link, we don't use it.
All right, I got my laptop. Let me go get it. I know the Bible says always be ready. Don't let nothing stop what needs to happen.
Turn your hearing aid up. You're going to get a laptop. Turn your hearing aid up. Okay. There's something going. There's something going. Carl, I'm glad you got to deal with it. That's why I come way over here. When he was kayaking, he was going around in circles. He couldn't use one arm. I didn't hear you. Yeah.
Or you want to talk about your stuff while we get set up? You want to talk about your stuff while I get the, see if they're going to get on?
Good morning, everyone. For those who don't know me, I'm Councilman Carl Bell from District 4. I haven't completely, I put together a non-conclusive study of data centers for the councilman, which I will pass to you on Monday. I had a problem with getting all the copies I needed, but I've shared a copy with the Jenkinsville delegation, the mayor and the mayor pro tem, and Representative Andy McDaniels, as well as I have a copy for Senator Stubbs. And I have a couple of other copies I'm going to give to individuals. The reason for putting together this information, I've been reading about data centers for the past year, and my initial stance on it has changed. The more information I have learned, the more information I feel needs to be shared. And I believe that this issue of data centers is a citizens issue. It's not just a county council issue. It's not just a legislative issue, representatives, senators, and that sort of thing. It is a citizens issues. And as the report will indicate that I'm sharing with the people in this county, the leadership in this county, is so that they can respond to their constituents and citizens with valid and accurate information instead of just hearsay information and studies. And I've given a list of references, so you don't have to take my word for it in the study. You can do your own investigation and research, but I've given a list of references so you can check. And the majority of those references are scientific, with scientific journals, scientific expertise in the field of data centers, energy, water usage, noise, and so forth and so on. And the reasoning and approach parts of the study gives a very clear understanding of how data centers are to be approached in this environment that we're living in. One of the fascinating things I found out is that where the data centers are mostly located and how many there are. I think people are generally not aware that in the United States, there's over 1,000 data centers in different parts of the country. And not just in the United States, but in China, in Europe.
I got them on. You mind stopping, let them go ahead, and then you get back up.
Okay, sure.
Good morning, Jordan. Chris. Good morning, Chris. Yes, ma'am. Good morning. Okay, I apologize for being late. I had to go check out some properties that folk want to use for renting, and I want to see it before I sign off on it. So I'm running late, but thank you guys for holding on and for waiting. We have several members of county council here. So, Chris, if you can talk first, and Chris basically gave his presentation on preparing for data centers and things that we need to consider, and things that we need to, and things that we need to think about before we make any kind of decisions about data centers. And then Jordan, and Chris is an engineer out of Charlotte, and he can tell you a little bit more about himself before he speaks. And then Jordan works with the Council of State Governments, and he will talk more about the state perspective. And I don't know if you all knew or not, but there were two bills put up in the General Assembly. One was a Senate bill, and the other one was a House bill. And one would have put a moratorium on data centers, basically putting them on hold until enough studies have been done to say that regulations are in place, people's property is protected, all the different concerns regarding data centers have been addressed. So, Chris, if you don't mind going first, and then Jordan, and then we'll open up for questions, if that's okay.
That'd be fine. If I can share screen, it
They
says
won't be able to see
host attendee screen sharing is disabled.
Yeah, they won't be able to see it, Chris. So, well, the ones behind me can, but the one, you got it?
I see, your screen. Are you able to, allow me to share mine?
I don't know what I need to do.
You should, if you go down to, let's see here. Maybe in more, if you go into the Zoom, on the Zoom screen, is Zoom up? Are you using the app or are you using the web browser?
I don't know.
Fair enough.
You know what, they can't see it anyway, so I guess if you talk from the screens and then, if you send them later, then I can send them, make sure, I send them to Mr. Vick, and he can make sure it goes out to everyone.
Well, I will say if it's all right with you, I'd like to just email it to you.
Okay,
The presentation itself is in and of itself a presentation.
okay.
Right? So, if you don't mind, if you just tell me your email, I can forward you,
Send it
can
to,
forward you the documents.
okay, send it to McDaniel, McDanielae, the number 9, @gmail.
You said McDaniel?
Then A is an apple, E is an elephant.
Okay. And then the number 9?
Yes. No, I'm sorry, AE. You got AE? A is an, and then the number 9. McDaniel, A is an apple, E is an elephant, then the number 9.
At
Gmail.
gmail.com. Okay, you got it.
Oh, okay.
I
good.
just sent you some slides on my end to your email.
Okay. Who can put them up? Oh, okay.
Well, that's a PDF, actually. I guess I should probably send you the actual PowerPoint instead. Let
Yeah,
me do that.
yeah, I think they can put it on, they have screens in here where they can actually show it. Where you want me to forward it to?
Sent.
Oh, okay. It was open, oh. Or you can give your email and he can send it to you. Oh. There in the way.
So as the host, if you click on Internet Explorer where you have Zoom open, I'm looking at is, the second from the right is Zoom, so on the far right is the tab. If you click that, I can, you can set it to where I can share screen, or you can just go to you don't need to send the speaker notes. You're welcome to, it's good stuff, but I don't know that people need to see the speaker notes. That's kind of, I probably shouldn't have sent that.
Oh, okay.
Chris, try to share now. I think it might have been enabled.
He's gonna put it up here as well.
I am able to share now, good. Okay. We'll just do the entire screen, sharing. All right. Are y'all looking at my screen now?
We can see it on the computer, but he's gonna try to put it on some, on the screens here, on the computer in the auditorium where we are.
Okay. Just tell me when you're ready.
Okay. And thank you again, Chris. You can tell them a little bit about you while we wait.
Sure. Well, I started out as a project manager at Charlotte Douglas International Airport. Majority of my experience has been in aviation, construction management, and I spent 5 years as a structural design engineer for nuclear power. I've worked in nuclear power for about 5 years, and I've also transitioned from a design engineer over to a project manager in the nuclear industry. Worked all over New Orleans, worked in Arkansas, Dallas, and Fort Worth, and down in Comanche Nuclear Power Plant in Glen Rose, Texas. So I came back to aviation in 2017.
Chris Colson. Chris Colson. Colson still, yeah, it's in.
Adoption is something that I took a AI and construction management class. I've been helping companies stand up AI implementation for different engineering and construction companies. Presented to the American Society of Engineering Educators on AI implementation in their curriculum. And I'm presenting to the American Society of Civil Engineers for AI implementation for small businesses.
Chris, hold on real quick. Oh, I should have gave you mine.
That's right, I told her to get you one. Thank you, ma'am.
Peggy. Peggy. Got some napkins. Paper towels. I'm sorry, y'all. This is a gift.
Hey, you make a pretty good waitress. Thank you, ma'am.
All right, Chris, we slowly getting there.
All right.
They got these powerful mics in here. You be whispering all your business be in the street. Okay, he said when you get ready to go to the next one, say next.
Okay.
Are we gonna be able to see him now?
Huh?
Are we gonna be able to see him now?
You can, if you want to do it that way, you can. This PowerPoint gonna be up there. But look at your picture.
He should be up on these two, too.
You ain't practice. You ain't practice, so I call you on the spot. I think. Speak on the other side. Thank you. Chris, you finished with your introduction? I know I cut you off.
Yeah, the last thing I was going to say is I work as the Mid-Atlantic Sector Manager for my company. I work at TY Lin International. They are a large private-owned transportation engineering company. We design and engineer, manage, construct all over the world. Bridges, airports, rail and transit, you name it, data centers as well. So just capable of, so I'm over the Mid-Atlantic. So from Delaware to Kentucky to Tennessee to South Carolina, that's my region, the Mid-Atlantic, and I'm for aviation. So that's the last thing I wanted to say about myself.
Oh, okay. We have your presentation up, so you can go ahead and, it's not on the screen, but we have it on our screens in here. You want to share the screen back again?
I'm okay, if you just want me to say next slide, and then,
Okay, we can do it that way. We can see.
if that, okay.
All right, that's fine, go ahead.
All right, so good morning, everybody. Little technology hiccup, but hopefully it's smooth from here. I appreciate the opportunity to speak with you. I want to talk to you about something very simple when it comes to data center implementation, and that is preparedness. Data centers are no longer buildings with computers, they're major infrastructure. Land use, power, water, infrastructure, development, public policy implications. My goal today is not to give you a technical engineering lecture. It is to help local leaders understand what these facilities require, what opportunities they can bring, and what risks they create. And and why preparation gives communities leverage. So next slide, please. Hopefully y'all are looking at slide 2, which
Today's goal?
is today's goals. Okay. You know, what should elected officials, planners, utility providers, and community leaders understand before data centers are put, a proposal is put before them? If a region is organized before the developer approaches, they're not reacting to a specific project. They can ask better questions, set expectations, and negotiate from a stronger position. This allows regionally local leaders to equally negotiate favorable terms for their regions. You would not want a, you know, these developers are going to go to whoever is going to give them the best deal, right? So if we are not unanimously sharing these, so next slide. So hopefully you're looking at why this conversation matters now. This is a regional planning issue. AI has made data infrastructure a front page issue. Every AI search, logistics model, cloud service, security system, business platform, every time you go to the ATM, every time you stream Netflix, that infrastructure has to be physically located somewhere. And that infrastructure has to be located in a real community, connected to a real power grid, cooled with infrastructure, served by roads and fiber optic cable, and permitted by local government. And that is why this topic belongs in front of these counties, and why I presented it originally to the Central Midlands Council of Governments, because it crosses jurisdictional boundaries and affects regional strategy. Next slide, please. Hopefully you're looking at what is a modern data center. A simple way to think about what a data center is a warehouse for digital activity, but that understates the infrastructure involved. Inside are rows of servers and network equipment. Around those are layers of electrical systems, backup battery power, backup generators for those batteries, cooling systems, communications infrastructure, fire protection, security, and monitoring. The building may look plain on the outside, but it behaves like a mission-critical utility and customer. Next slide, please. Hopefully you're looking at perspective from the Charlotte Douglas International Airport. So my experience at the Charlotte Douglas Airport is useful because airports are complex, high-stakes infrastructure environments. The airport depends on digital systems to operate safely and efficiently. There's no room for downtime. It's literally a life safety issue if electrical systems go down on an airfield, or if security systems fail in a terminal. That reliability means backup power, security, communications, and uptime are not abstract concepts. They are daily operational requirements. And the lesson that I would carry into a regional discussion is that data infrastructure should be planned like critical infrastructure, with the right stakeholders involved early. Next slide, please. Hopefully you're looking at what data centers require. So, you know, land, power, cooling, water, fiber, and public infrastructure. This is one of the most important slides in this presentation for your group, because you need to understand what these developers are going to require. A data center is it may not generate the same daily traffic as a shopping center, but it can create very large demands on power, land, water, and utility infrastructure. The region should understand these requirements before evaluating incentives, zoning, utility agreements, or public commitments. So the theme I'm going to keep saying in this presentation is Fairfax County should be preparing so that when the conversation comes, you know what you want to ask for. You know what you want out of this negotiation. I think that you could leverage coordination with other counties and other city and local officials. And I think that the Central Midlands Council of Governments is a good way to establish a standard. But we unanimously want to see minimum expectations. And if we don't set those now, when the developer comes with a program, the time to respond is you're going to be in a time pressure to review a very extensive contract that's got more legalese in it than it has actual tangible incentives. So what I want to drive home is prepare. Prepare now, and the time is now to prepare. Prepare now, so that when that developer shows up, you're ready for that conversation. And when he brings a contract, you just drop your standards right on his lap and say, you read this before you bring a contract to us. I say all this because I want what's best for South Carolina. I'm from South Carolina. I went to the University of South Carolina. I've got a civil structural bachelor's, and just like I said, I got my master's in construction and facilities management from the University of North Carolina, Charlotte. I don't have a dog in this race here. I've got nothing to gain. I just want South Carolinians to get the best incentives that they can get from these inevitable projects that will be brought before Fairfield County. Data centers can bring real benefits. I'm not sure. Hopefully you're looking at, if I didn't say this, next slide, but opportunities for the region. It should be on slide number 7.
Yeah.
Hopefully you're on slide 7, opportunities for the region. Large capital investment, potential utilities, substations, construction activity, workforce partnerships, positioning the region for AI era economic development, and potential attraction of related technology. The value proposition should be broader than permanent job count alone. Data centers bring real benefit, especially capital investment and infrastructure upgrades. Communities should be clear-eyed, though. These facilities do not employ as many permanent workers as traditional manufacturing plants of similar size and investment value. That does not mean that they're bad projects, though. It means the public benefit has to be defined more broadly and negotiated carefully at the start. That's why it is so important for local governments like Fairfield County to prepare and have these terms established. What expectations do we have? We need to set those before we enter the negotiation room. Next slide, please. It should be slide 8, challenges and trade-offs. High power can demand and strain a grid. Water usage and cooling can become controversial if not understood appropriately and early. And we'll talk about that. Noise, heat, stormwater, runoff, because the buildings themselves are impervious. Land use compatibility, and security. All of these are challenges. But incentives, the trade-offs, the incentives can reduce public value if the benefits are not clearly identified. So permanent employment may be modest relative to the facility size and resource demand, but what's key is that residents should not carry the burden of hidden utility and infrastructure costs. That should be transferred to the developer that brings this data center program before local governments. Data centers can be valuable, but only if community understands the trade-offs and negotiates for public value. That's your job, negotiating for public value at the beginning. If a community is surprised by power demand or water demand or noise or limited jobs after the fact, the opportunity can become quickly controversial. Next slide, please, slide 9. Who needs to be at the table? So this should not become a one-on-one negotiation between a developer and one jurisdiction. This is where I believe that the CMCOG can be valuable, leverage consultants. A data center may physically sit in one jurisdiction, but it impacts the opportunities regionally, so externally to counties. Power, water, workforce, roads, fiber, emergency response, and economic development strategy. Speaking of terms, emergency response, I don't know if you've seen an electrical fire, but they are not addressed the same as a normal house fire, right? You don't just come and dump water on this. They have generators and battery backup that do not go out. They do not go offline if not managed correctly. So there are training that the developer should provide to local emergency responders. These are the types of terms. The region should avoid communities competing against each other and understand the full picture. Economic development, local governments, electrical utilities, water sewer providers, broadband fiber providers, emergency services, workforce development partners, environmental community representatives, legal advisors, all should be part of this negotiation. So it's not, again, I get back to where I started. This should not be a one-on-one negotiation between a developer and a jurisdiction. Decision, right? And you do that by involving more people. Okay, next slide. This is slide 10. The big lesson, prepare before the developer arrives. That's really the point of this whole presentation. If a developer arrives with a site, a schedule, a power plan, an incentives request, and attorneys already engaged, the community is under pressure. But if a region prepares first, it can define what good looks like. What information is required, what community benefits are expected, what infrastructure protections are needed, and what terms are non-negotiable. Once a project is on the table, timelines tighten and leverage often drops. So early preparation lets the region define expectations before negotiations begin. And regional coordination, I said this before, we need to establish a standard that's unanimous across the entire region, multiple counties, multiple jurisdictions. I refer back to I've got 2 kids, right? I've got a 12-year-old and a 14-year-old. And for a decade now, when they don't get the answer out of mom that they want, they come to me. And I don't know what mom's terms were, right? They do this quickly and quietly. And, so if I don't know what my, I'll call your regional adjacent county and local government requirements are, I don't know where I need to hold the line. And that's why collaboration is just so important. And with that collaboration, establishing a standard and incorporating it unanimously is just so very important. So we'll go to the next slide, please. It's slide 11. Favorable terms communities should prioritize. So this is the meat and the potatoes of this presentation. This is where preparation becomes tangible. Prepared communities do not just approve projects, they shape the deal. If local governments prepare early, they are not limited to a yes or no. They can define the terms of yes. I want to really drive that home. If you are prepared, when they bring a developer brings a project to you, you're not limited to yes or no. You can define the terms of yes. Those terms might include environmental performance, power protections for residents, infrastructure paid for by developer, water safeguards, workforce commitments, community benefits, reporting, and a plan for what happens if the facility becomes obsolete. The public should receive long-term public value, not just a ribbon cutting on a data center. So some of the terms that I think communities like Fairfield County should prioritize: net zero or near net zero environmental impact, electricity credits, rate protections, community power benefits for local residents, developer-funded grid, substation, transmission, road, stormwater, and utility upgrades, water use limits, water preference, drought contingency requirements, local tax base guarantees, minimum public benefit commitments, and clawbacks if promises are not met, local tax base guarantees, minimum public, broadband, public safety, workforce, or local infrastructure, local hiring, emergency services funding, equipment, training, and response coordination, annual public reporting on power, water, jobs, taxes, sustainability, and community benefits, and decommissioning or adaptive reuse plans so that the community is not left with an obsolete facility. So these are the terms that I think they're reasonable. They're the thing that's going to protect local leaders at the end of the negotiation and at the acceptance or rejection of a potential data warehouse program. You know, I'm sure y'all are aware there's feedback no matter what way you go. Whether you accept the terms or if you reject or you negotiate, no matter what decision you make at the time, there will be scrutiny. And so showing that you established favorable terms are going to, that's how you defend yourself in the decisions that were made in the negotiation room at the time. Okay, so next slide, please, slide 12. This is the, I didn't have time to pivot from my CMCOG presentation, but recommended Fairfield County action. So this is slide 12. My recommendation is that Fairfield County consider forming a regional task force or ad hoc committee focused on data centers and AI readiness. The purpose would be to slow economic development, the purpose would not be to slow economic development. The purpose would be to prepare the region so it can move faster, smarter, and with more confidence when opportunities arise from developers and potential programs. This group could develop a checklist, identify regional constraints, coordinate utilities and workforce partners, and help negotiate from strength. So, a data center AI readiness task force, a study group or ad hoc committee, develop a regional readiness checklist, map suitable sites, start, establishing where you would want a data center versus where they want to put it. Consider the power constraints, the water capacity, the fiber routes, the transportation impacts. Coordinate with the utilities in the region and negotiate priorities. And then study the AI workforce disruption. The regional economic development opportunities. Establish a shared knowledge base so that you're not negotiating alone. So these are my recommendations. So next slide, please. Slide 13 is just the closing. It's about public value, right? I'm gonna close with what I started with, and that's preparedness. I mean, this is a moment for Fairfield County to prepare and scale and be ready for the speed of change in data infrastructure and artificial intelligence. If Fairfield County prepares now, it can welcome an investment while protecting residents and negotiating better terms. Preparedness creates leverage. Leverage creates better agreements, and better agreements creates public value. I'm gonna say that again. Preparedness creates leverage. Leverage creates better agreements. Better agreements creates public value. That's the difference between reacting to change and shaping it. And I think that's my show. So, do y'all have any questions, or we're gonna take questions later?
Hold on real quick. Jordan, do you have time for questions first, or you want to do your presentation and then they ask questions? I want to respect your time.
I might prefer to present and then answer questions together. I'll be pushing a little bit on my next meetings.
I'm actually, yeah, I just did a time check. It is 11 o'clock and I do have to go, and I'm sorry for that. Feel free, you got my email, I just emailed you. Feel free to email me any questions and I'll get back to you. I'm happy to come back and speak again, or, but unfortunately, I do have to jump for a meeting at 11, so I'm sorry for that.
Okay, then can we do this, Jordan, Chris, can we maybe just take 2 questions? Can we do that, Jordan? I know you,
Sounds good.
okay, 2.
I have a simple question. I've read some information and I'm trying to skim through it.
Can y'all hear him?
Yes.
Okay.
In a nutshell, what is a data center? What's it for?
A data center is for processing, digital data. So it's network servers. It's basically a large storage and processing facility for data. So it houses large servers. It comes with a lot of infrastructure, a lot of power, especially, as well as cooling systems, and then the infrastructure that goes with that, which is, telecommunications, fiber optic cable, copper, and then all other utilities associated with that. So roads and go ahead. I'm sorry.
Okay.
After our last call, I think a little bit of context on scale might be helpful to folks who are a little new to the conversation.
Say it again.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead. You've got a warehouse full of computers. How big is that warehouse? I think people's heads tend to explode a little bit when they realize the scale of what we're talking about. So for example, Meta has a facility, Meta is the parent company of Facebook, they have a big facility planned in northern Louisiana that is going to use 3 times as much power as the city of New Orleans. There's a planned facility out in Wyoming that is going to basically have enough power on site, the equivalent amount of power you'd need to power New York City. In the last 18 months, about 50 gigawatts of new on-site natural gas plants, mostly to power data centers, have been proposed around the country. How much is 50 gigawatts? I'm speaking to you from the city of Buffalo, New York. Imagine taking 150 little cities of Buffalo, New York, and dropping them around the country. Add those up, and you'd get to about 50 gigawatts. So we're not talking about a small data center that manages hospital records the way that we had them in like the 1990s when a lot of data center incentives were conceived. We're talking something much, much bigger that is driven by AI. So before, the city of Buffalo's power demand gets dropped in your backyard, that's why I think Chris's point about really being prepared for this is really important, because this is much bigger than a lot of folks might assume.
Okay, you want to ask your question, Mayor? After this question, anybody else? Then Chris, you can go ahead with your presentation, and then we can dig a little deeper in the gentleman that asked what's data center. He's the mayor pro tem for Jenkinsville. so we can dig a little deeper there if we need to. But go ahead, Mayor.
I'm Greg Ginyard. I'm the mayor of the town of Jenkinsville. My question is, what about the heat factor? The amount of heat that comes from these data centers? What about the pollution factor that comes from this? And then we know the amount of electricity they use. What happens with the transmission lines? We all know that enough transmission lines coming out put out rays that cause cancer for people. So have any of that been addressed? Has any of that, the pollution factor and the heat factor, we're having 100-degree weather now. So what would that do in your community if you had that data center there that's putting out all of this heat? And then the pollution factor, I haven't heard anybody say anything about the pollution factor, but it's a known fact, and I did my research that there's a pollution factor in it. So not even talk about the amount of water that it goes through that has to cool these things off. And they're not really cooling them off. You don't have enough water in Fairfield County to cool them off, to be honest with you. So has any of that been taken? I've heard nothing from any of that in your presentations. So can you maybe tell us what's the deal with that? Why is that not mentioned?
Go ahead.
I'll just say I'll be excited to share some thoughts on that when I do my slides.
Okay, go ahead, Joy.
I don't, did we just lose Chris? Or I didn't want to cut him
Yeah,
off.
he put in the text that he had to leave in the chat.
Oh, I see.
Yeah.
I see, okay. Okay, so, out of respect for the technological situation, I can sort of speak without slides if you like, or I can say next slide if you have them ready. Either way is fine with me.
Jordan, Jordan, tell them a little bit about you and who you are, who you work for.
Sure. I'm the director of policy and research at an organization called Climate Exchange. I'm a lawyer by training with a lot of background in electricity regulation. And my organization helps track state-level policy across the country with a lens towards climate, but we really are looking at data centers across all of the impacts that they pose, from electricity affordability, reliability, community impacts, water, tax and employment outcomes. And so our team has tracked about 400 some pieces of state legislation addressing data centers over the last couple of years. And we've extracted out a lot of what we think are best practices, addressing different issue areas along the lines I just mentioned. So if you were to either follow the link on my slides or hop on our website, you will find our series of data center policy toolkits, where we dig in more deeply on specific issues around water and electricity reliability and local air emissions, and offer some best practices we're seeing from around the country. I'll say that though we have a state-level focus, I know South Carolina is a home rule state, so a lot of the things that we track at the state level are also things that you could tackle at the local level as well. So would you like me to sort of begin my presentation, or am I holding for you guys to figure out anything technical?
Oh, no, you can go ahead. We don't have it up. They're going to try to load it, but I think if you just go ahead and go through, then we can play catch up.
Sure. I'll chat it through, and if at some point you want me to tell you where I am, I'll tell you where I am, but
Okay.
I'll proceed as though we don't have the slides.
Okay.
So I'm going to address data center impacts on water, electricity affordability, reliability, and local emissions. We look at some other issues under our shop, but I'll try to keep it a little focused for today. So when we talk about water usage, a really important distinction is what kind of water usage. Because data centers indirectly consume a lot of water when the facility is constructed and when the chips that power them are manufactured, and most when electricity is generated to serve them. But in terms of what you have to regulate the data center facility itself for, we're talking about on-site cooling. So you have a warehouse full of computers that gets very hot and needs to be constantly cooled and needs a lot of water for that. They will use any source of water, depending on where they are. They'll pump their own groundwater, they'll plug into your municipal system, they might be able to use gray or reclaimed water, and a medium-sized data center can consume around 110 million gallons a year. Coming out of the data center, you're going to have a lot of steam evaporation, right? Reducing the water you put back into the watershed. You're gonna have a lot of hot water coming out, which could be a problem for local wildlife, for example. And you're gonna have some of the wastewater discharge is going to have a concentration of certain types of dissolved chemicals that are there to really just facilitate the cooling inside the data center. They'll want something anti-corrosive in there. They'll want something that helps prevent the growth of algae, in and around their servers. So there'll be some additives to the water that come out as well. It is really difficult to plan for data center water demand for a couple of reasons. First, we don't know how fast this industry is going to grow. I mentioned 150 cities of Buffalo plopping around the country. That's a projection, and we're going to see. The other reason it's very difficult to plan around data center water usage is just the water efficiency technology is changing year by year. So if you're taking a policy approach, you might not want to describe exactly what the best water efficiency technology is in 2026 and put that in law. You might want to describe a process for continually assessing that. There's also a lack of transparency about how much data centers, even their current water use is. A lot of data centers are having local electeds sign NDAs so that they won't disclose what's actually on their permit. There's also confusion around when water is withdrawn. So if water is continually withdrawn and then pumped back out, that's relatively predictable, but certain types of cooling systems will reuse water throughout the year. And that creates a situation where they withdraw a massive amount of water all at once that's going to be in use at that facility over months. So that kind of withdrawal might also have impacts on local water supplies. There are a few different tools that either locals or state officials can use to address water. I mean, you can condition water terms around business license, around water rates that they pay, around zoning, around water use permits, around incentives. Maybe you have a conditional incentive in place that has water terms in it. I'm going to address 4 water terms that we think, and you can get more detail on these in our toolkits. You can have water standards. You can conduct impact assessments. You can make sure data centers are conducting proper disclosure, and you can make sure they're paying for what they use. So under standards, popular terms that we see being repeated around the country are insisting on things like water usage effectiveness. Water usage effectiveness is a term of art. It really just describes a simple formula. It's the amount of water the data center consumes divided by their energy consumption. So if you wanted to say this data center should be at least as efficient in using water as the national average, you might say, we're going to insist that your data center has a water usage effectiveness of 0.36 liters per kilowatt hour, which is a recently published figure. Also under standards, you might regulate specific pollutants. A lot of pollutants are going to, fortunately, be covered under the Federal Clean Water Act, but some pollutants are not. PFAS, you might have heard the term forever chemicals, are not regulated under the Clean Water Act, and certain states have put in place standards around that for data center water discharges. You can also impose water efficiency technology standards, although, as I said, it's a smart idea probably to keep those flexible as the technology changes over time. And you can impose watershed health management requirements. So we are going to require the data center to be actively in consultation with local bodies that are going to determine how their water withdrawals are affecting the whole watershed and take, remediative actions if necessary. On the subject of impact assessments, a lot of states are pushing forward requirements just to say at the permitting stage, data centers should study the impacts that they're going to have on watershed health and conduct an environmental review or propose a watershed management mitigation plan. This is the kind of thing, if you have a clear idea in mind of what this should look like before they come to your door, you're in a stronger negotiating position, as Chris alluded to. Another simple thing that we need to get right in this space is just making sure data centers are disclosing their water usage fully. Unfortunately, we're seeing a national trend where a lot of different data center developers are coming to localities and having them sign these non-disclosure agreements so that we don't even know necessarily how much water they're withdrawing or what chemicals are in it when they get released back into local systems. This is a simple policy fix. You can ban those types of NDAs, and you can require that these disclosures are public and that there's notification that goes out to communities so that the local community can really act on this information when it's proposed in a permit. I'm going to, in the interest of time, skip ahead to some topics around electricity because, my gosh, there's so much to cover, and I thank you for your patience. I know this is rather dense. Hopefully you're able to look at the slides, and I'm always happy to answer follow-up questions. So in the electricity space, there's a whole different basket of issues that we need to be concerned about. And the first one that most states are really concerned about is how is data center electricity demand going to impact the price of electricity? Over the last 18 months, a term of art that has swept the nation is large load tariffs. Large load means you're drawing a lot of power. Tariff is how much you're paying for your electricity via the utility. And we have seen specific terms around large customers like data centers crop up in 36 different states at some level or other, proposed or enacted. There's a lot of movement in this space. Because so much of it is happening all at the same time, no one large load tariff looks exactly like another. There's a lot of disparate best practice that you might have to grab from Idaho and New York and California to be able to construct something that's really best in class. So there's a lot to learn here from a very fast-moving policy environment. I will note the South Carolina context here is right now, the South Carolina PUC has an open, generic docket, so it's going to apply to all the utilities in the state, where they are soliciting comments on what large load tariffs should look like in South Carolina. So if you and your office or if local community stakeholder groups that you're affiliated with have concerns about what data centers are going to do to power rates, there is a timely proceeding for you to be engaged in right now. I'll have links in my slides, but initial comments in this proceeding are due August 14th. Reply comments are due October 15th, so you've got a bit of time to get engaged in this question if you're not already. I'm going to speak a little bit to what goes into a large load tariff, just to give you a sense of what's at stake. Okay, there's a lot of elements of grid costs that are going to be factored in here. I heard the gentleman on the line refer to transmission costs particularly. I mean, that's a really tricky one to get at. But the biggest concern is often what happens if we're in a bubble? What happens if 10 years from now, data centers are not consuming as much power as they once did, the technology's gotten more efficient or something, or we realized it wasn't as economically useful as we thought it was, and the grid infrastructure built to serve that data center is going to live on for another 20 years and be paid for by other ratepayers. A lot of large load tariffs are proposing clauses around protecting ratepayers from stranded assets. So that means things like minimum demand charges. You have to use the amount of power that you contracted for. A minimum contract term. A high fee to exit your contract with the utility. Or even collateral requirements. Prove to us that you have the money to actually pay for all of the power you say you're going to demand over the lifetime of this agreement. In the interest of time, I'm going to skip a couple topics on load flexibility and really optimizing the location of these things, but I'll note if people are curious about like how we can get data centers to operate as efficiently within the context of the existing grid as they can, I've got a lot of notes on that and would be happy to dig in. But I'll skip ahead to local air emissions because I think this is a big topic for folks. As I mentioned, right now there are 50 gigawatts of data center power in queues around the nation that are proposing to have their own on-site power plants, basically. Their own, usually natural gas power plants, helping them run 365, and that has a potentially huge air emissions impact. What's also true is that even if they don't have a huge power plant on site, they will usually have a lot of diesel backup generation. And that diesel backup generation can run a lot more often than you would think, just going by the term backup. A backup generator, we've talked to health modelers out in California who've estimated that in practice, you know, depending on how a state defines an emergency and how often they're allowed to run, data centers might prefer to run these backup generators 15% of the year. And if you're not really carefully controlling for the efficiency of those generators, that can have a huge local air quality impact. So we track proposed legislation around the country that looks at encouraging data centers to switch to cleaner backup power. That, in a lot of cases, that can be batteries. We've seen terms around the country where states are requiring backup generation to be truly for emergency usage. One state even proposed a bill that would define emergency operation as limited to truly life-threatening situations. So not just arbitraging power prices against each other or something. And then finally, there are good emission standards for backup generators that states are trying to write into their laws. So EPA actually has tiers of emission standards for backup generation. A lot of states are asking their data centers to operate on at least tier 4 emission standards. And those things together can help data centers operate, you know, to the extent that they are going to use backup power a lot more cleanly and a lot less of the year, and really reduce those air emissions impacts. I know I've been chatting for a while, and I'm going to stop here. I've surveyed a lot and alluded to a lot that I didn't get to cover, but I'd be happy to take a few questions if you have them.
Okay. We got a question from Mayor Ginyard.
Again, you didn't really touch on the mission lines and, you know, where it's coming from the grid, or wherever it comes from, going through neighborhoods and going through different places by schools and stuff like that. How do you intend to, I guess that would be controlled by the site, but, you know, in Fairfield County, we're populated. We don't really have any way out the way places to put something like this. And then what about the heat factor? You know, I know you said it takes, like it, if you got a warehouse full of computers, but my thing is, what is that happening into the atmosphere? What's going on in the atmosphere with that much heat generating from there? Well, you know, it's a lot of, I've been doing a lot of research, pollution. I mean, if you're using a river or a lake to pull water in, then people swim in that water. You know, people fish in that water. But when you're running that through this data center and pushing it back out, what is that doing? What's that doing to the environment itself?
Yeah, you broke up a little in the earlier part of your question, so forgive me if I miss something important. But on heat factor, I'm not aware of research or state approaches that are specifically looking at just the ambient air. Like, you know, my neighborhood is next to a data center. Does it feel hotter, you know, on my skin because of the data center? I'm not aware of regulatory pushes on that, or even really good research that tries to quantify it. I think what you alluded to on water is very important. So, you know, you can put discharge requirements on data centers that they have to discharge water at or below a certain temperature, not just for, you know, recreational users of that water body, but also, you know, a lot of different species of fish will not fare so well. Perhaps you have a fishing community that really wants to take an advocacy stance on that. So just requiring data centers to discharge water at or below certain temperatures can be a critical term in permitting for them. In terms of where you can site data centers to potentially reduce their emissions, there's been a few legislative pushes around trying to get data centers to be coupled alongside other sorts of industrial end users who might actually use that waste heat. And so the term of art for that is building a thermal energy network. And we've tracked a few states around the country that have proposed legislation specifically for that. Like, if you're going to propose a data center, we want you to study the region and find the industrial user who would take that waste heat, and you're gonna build the channel. You know, you're gonna underground the ductwork to bring your waste heat to them and make some productive use of it. And so, you know, you can find examples of that kind of legislation in our toolkits, or you can reach out to me if you're curious. There's also a lot going on around trying to site data centers where there's the potential to couple them with renewables. So they're not going to be fueled as much by new on-site natural gas. An interesting term of art there is where there's surplus energy capacity, surplus interconnection capacity. You kind of study your electric grid, and maybe you find a decommissioned power plant somewhere where there's really strong transmission connections that you can build off of and say, you know, here's a win-win business opportunity where a data center could locate here, a solar farm could locate here, and the two of them together would have a much easier path to get interconnected to the electric grid, you know, by virtue of locating on this spot where we've already built it out a little bit. There have been studies on the potential around the country to accommodate that, and they've, you know, proposed huge numbers, like 50 gigawatts, that you could satisfy using that kind of co-located renewable and data center configuration. So those are some thoughts, I think, in response to your question. I hope I didn't miss anything critical, but thank you for the queries.
Let's talk about the health concern for the citizens. And the reason of this non-disclosure things, what's the purpose of non-disclosure? Are they hiding something that's going to damage the people? Or, you know, anytime you tell me that you're asking the government, the bodies to sign a non-disclosure, that means that something's not there that the public's going to agree with. Why isn't it just open and everybody knows exactly what's going on? I mean, I would say to my representatives, you know, don't sign a disclosure. You know, why would you sign something that keep us from ever knowing what's actually going on with this? It's got to be something really wrong with that.
I agree 1,000% with that. You know, the argument you'll hear from data center developers is, oh, if you knew everything about our power demands, or if you knew everything about the water we're using and how it's going in and when it's going in and what's in it when it comes out, well, then you'd be able to figure out our technology. And if you could figure out our technology, maybe China would be able to mimic, you know, approaches we're taking. They wave these issues around, I think, in a way to try and basically thwart really robust public engagement in the process. They'll claim it's related to trade secrets, or even, as I alluded to, you know, with the China example, maybe even national security. I don't believe that there's a really strong case to be indulging those arguments. And so we've seen some states around the country ban non-disclosure agreements in this context. And if you can't get that through at the state level, I really encourage you not to start signing non-disclosure agreements at the local level either.
Okay.
Jordan, can you talk a little bit about regulations that the EPA had in place when data centers were first being put in place versus now, where I'm hearing, and it may not be true, and correct me if I'm wrong, that a lot of the regulations have been lifted, and that's part of the reason that there's such a outcry now versus when data centers were put in place years ago?
There are federal actions that are live now to try and make it easier and faster for data centers to interconnect without as much state and local control. The Federal Energy Regulatory Commission, for example, they control the big transmission system. They are requiring all of the regional grid operators to come forward with a show cause order and demonstrate that, hey, we're doing everything we can to get data centers interconnected as quickly as possible. And so there's potential in the near future that we're going to see some federal regulatory backsliding. There's also, as I think I alluded to in the backup emissions context, there's federal regulations around it that weren't really built for this moment when you would have city-scale projects that might all go onto backup power at the same time and really have much more profound emissions impacts than was maybe anticipated in the original regs. I will say mea culpa, though. I don't think that there's been a recent backsliding around those regs specifically for data centers. I think we just haven't caught up with the reality of the market we're facing right now and the need to be extra stringent. So some things on the federal horizon to keep our eyes on, but I think it really is a situation where the feds haven't caught up with where we need to be.
Okay. If you were to recommend a tour of a data center or a site where a data center is located, which would be the worst case scenario you would recommend or suggest, and which would be the best case scenario?
Sure. Well, okay. I'm just, and I'm gonna speak a little bit loosely because I don't recall the exact names of some of these guys. But Elon Musk has a very famous project out in Tennessee where basically he built his natural gas generators on wheels. And the reason he did that was so that he could legally call them a mobile source. They can't be regulated under the same federal permitting regime as you would use for a stationary gas generator. Because look, if we need to, we can just push them down this hill and they'll, so that was almost comically exploitative. Natural gas, huge scale natural gas generators that were not even being properly permitted according to federal rules because somebody created a loophole. Best case scenario though, and this is where, I think you take a positivist perspective and think, the way Chris was encouraging, what would be the conditions around yes. There are a few data centers around the country that are running 100% on clean energy. And they do it, in specific locations. They do it where, they have access to the land and, maybe where there's already an existing grid interconnection surplus, as I mentioned, that can allow that. If you wanted me to follow up with some best case scenarios, I could probably pull them out of one of our toolkits. I'm blanking on the names, but mostly out in the American West right now. So there are some success stories where we've seen data centers be planned well and operating, pretty cleanly. And, that's the kind of thing that I think policymakers should aspire towards encouraging.
Okay, if you could send those, that'd be great.
Sure.
Or send them to Brett and he'll get them out to us.
You do notice it
Sure.
says pretty cleanly, not clean.
What's the difference in pretty clean and clean, Jordan?
Well, I never like to say, 100% clean because it's that becomes a complicated question. If you do need backup power from the grid at some point in time, you are drawing on the grid and then your grid power is attributable to you. But if you theoretically have enough on-site renewable energy to meet all of your own needs, under all normal conditions, I'm going to call that pretty clean, understanding that there's probably analysis you could do and attribute some emissions there under certain situations. So, 100% renewable powered data centers are theoretically possible, and we see some around the country. I'm a lawyer, so I'm going to hedge a little bit and not say it's totally emissions free, probably, but that's my answer.
Okay. Anybody else? Okay.
Yeah.
Oh, okay.
You mentioned the medium-sized data center, like 100 million gallons of water per year. And there are minimal employees at these sites, correct? So what would be employee number at a medium-sized data center?
I have seen estimates as low as around 20. You know, these things kind of run on their own. So there'll be construction jobs up front. There'll be contributions to the local tax base, assuming you don't give it all away with incentives. There are reasons that people want these facilities for those reasons. But the ongoing jobs attributable to data center year over year are pretty small. The U.S. Census actually tracks this, data center related jobs, and the majority of them are really upfront at the construction phase or supporting them in some other, indirect way.
So, how many data centers are there in the United States currently?
That's a good question.
And in how many states, if you know that?
Yeah, I'm going to try to answer that. Okay, so first I'll say there's a lot of conflicting sources of data around this. And I'm so pleased, actually, because a coalition of NGOs has just banded together to get access to one of the best paywalled data center trackers out there. I'll learn about this afternoon, but I'll give you this context. In 2024, data centers used about 4% of the nation's electricity. And by 2035, projections, not just how many data centers are planned or announced, because that number can get huge and really ridiculous, but projections, sort of sober projections of how much the space is likely to grow, point to data centers going up maybe to 16 to 20% of the nation's power by 2035. So it's a meaningful chunk now. It will be a much bigger chunk in 10 years.
So you don't know approximately how many states they are currently in?
I have seen trackers that have them, I think, in every state at this point, but it depends on the size and scale. Like I said, data centers, depending on how you define them, have existed for a long time, and it's really these hyperscalers that we're more concerned about. I don't have an up-to-the-minute figure on how many states have, say, a data center over 300 megawatts, which is like a medium-sized city. I imagine I might be able to find that in some of our research, but I'm not positive.
Okay, thank you.
Okay, all right.
Question. Joseph McBride, Jenkinsville. How many data centers now are operating in black or poor rural neighborhoods?
That's a great question that I don't even know somebody who's tracking. But we have called out the need to really build cumulative impacts assessments into this. So I'll answer your question with that. I do not know. I would love to know. And one of the biggest policy tools at your disposal, if you're worried about that, is making sure that any impact from this data center that's proposed is considered on top of all other existing pollution burdens facing that community. The term of art for that is a cumulative impacts assessment. And we've seen some states that have proposed that specifically around data center permitting.
Okay, thank you.
Anybody else?
I got one more.
Okay.
What would you consider to be a safe amount of land to put a medium-sized data center for protection from all of the above reasons?
I'm gonna have to pass on that one. I think actually some of our co-presenters from the last presentation we were on had Chris might have had a better answer on that. I've heard estimates around 20 acres, but I'm really a little bit out of my depth on that question. I apologize.
Okay, thanks.
Okay, great.
My thing is, the water, you're saying 1 million gallons, 100 million gallons a year. even if you dig wells, if you don't use the water from the recreational lakes where people fish, people swim and stuff, even if you don't use that, what is it going to do if you dig wells? What is it going to do to the table, to the water table that we're using?
Right.
That's going to kill I'm president of Jenkinsville Water Company. We have wells. We supply the western side of Fairfield County with wells. Now, if you put something there that's going to drain down the water table in our district, then, you know, what are the people actually supposed to do? How are we supposed to supply water to the people? You can't pull it out of the lake, you can't pull it out the river, because if they're using that and they discharging it back in, now the fish are contaminated, you know, the water level is high, you know. So it's just, I just think it's not a good thing for a rural area such as us. Now, my biggest concern is, and I hear everybody, and with the research that I've done, talk about you need to have so much electricity, so much electricity. Well, in Jenkinsville, we sit on top of a nuclear reactor right now. They're in the process of building 2 more. And I'm hearing that's what the major, you know, that would be the perfect site. We don't want that. You know, the thing is, if I talked to some representatives, friends of mine from the Newberry area, they rejected it. I mean, it's not a good thing for a rural area like us. We just don't, you know, you need to be somewhere where there's an ocean, there's, you know, a big Detroit somewhere where there's something that's not going to, you know, it's just, all the research I've done, I've found nothing but, it's a money maker, but are you gonna put the money ahead of the health for the people? I mean, you know, we need to think more on the lines of the people and what is it going to do to the people than what it's going to do for the economy. I mean, we're surviving as we are. Well, why would we put something else that's in Fairfield County that's going to pull us back down that much more? You can say, oh, it's going to help you with the money, but the money don't do you no good when you're not here. If your health is being deteriorated by it, you know, you're contaminating the water system, you're contaminating everything. It's not, you know, I just totally disagree with it. And I would hope that when you guys do these presentations, you would come with more of the negative that's involved in this than you do with the positive. Because anything I'm hearing with positive is economical. It's going to create tax dollars. It's going to make you this. But, you know, the money does us no good when we're sick and can't spend it.
I'll just say amen, and thank you for the clarity and the moral focus of that. I'm going to have to hop off. You know, I have some colleagues who've been very patient with me, but I really appreciate the chance to have spoken to you all today, and would love to be in touch if we can answer anything on follow-up.
Okay, thank you, Jordan. We appreciate you. And,
Thank you.
Let other folk know, we appreciate them letting you guys come on and share information with us.
Thanks so much.
Okay, all right. Okay, Carl, you wanna, anything you got there?
To piggyback on the 2 speakers, everything that they said is in this report that I put together, and everything, and all the questions that the mayor has put out there, and the mayor pro tem is all that. It gives me confidence to say that my the research that I put together is very inclusive of everything that we've already heard. So when you get the reports, read it, and you will see that all the discussions that all the information that we just heard is in this report too. It's vast amount of information out there. And to ask the question, as of February 2026, the Pew Research Center reported that there's 2,986 data centers in 13 states. And it's in the report as well, what those states are. Virginia has the most, Indiana has the least at now. And as I was saying before, the presentation began, data centers are also located in other countries. So they're growing. But the thing I think, but the most important thing for me as a representative of Fairfield County, county councilman for District 4, which we all are assuming that if a data center is to come to Fairfield County, it would be in District 4, the western side of Fairfield County, which is where which is the area that I represent, and Councilwoman Swearinger. I'm in 4, she's in 3, so we're connected together. But it's also important that the town of Jenkinsville and representatives in those areas in which we live in District 4 and District 3, the mayor pro tem, that whenever a discussion is being held about anything, and I've made that clear to our administrator as well as to the county council, when you open your mouth to talk about anything dealing with District 4, I want to be there at the table. And I want that to be the case with Mayor Ginyard as well as Mayor Pro Tem, excuse me, McBride. And this information we're gathering, and I think this is a good start, a small group talking about this. But I can't stress enough who needs to be at the table when we're having these discussions. And the 4 people that you see here now are the 4 people who have to have a seat at the table when we're having this discussion. And again, I'll mention them: the mayor of Jenkinsville, the mayor pro tem, Councilwoman Swearinger, as well as myself. We have much more to learn. We want to listen to other people talk about the pros and the cons. We want to know the detailed information, and there are people. There are people out there who have that information. And one of the things, and I was let others speak after saying this. Before we start doing anything, Representative Annie McDaniel, I think it's important for the county as well as the town of Jenkinsville, District 4 and District 3, Fairfield County, to know what is Senate Bill 867 going to be, when it's going to be finalized, what is the discussion about it, what are the guidelines or rules or regulations, because that is the bill that is called the Data Center Development Act. What are our senators, state senators saying about data centers? What has their research uncovered? What are they doing before we move on and go any further? And we can work from there, because I think once they release that bill, official and finalized bill, then we'll know what the state is thinking when it comes to data centers in South Carolina. I mean, it was introduced this year, January, in 2026, and hasn't been any more information on it. And we know that and we've all been told, and we've also all heard, that if VC Summers 2 and 3 returns to Fairfield County, a data center is following.
Okay, see, that's where I'm at, Councilman Barrett.
Hold on real quick.
Yeah, I'm finished. Yeah.
My biggest concern is not, if the 2 reactors come in, don't be there, because Senator Cooper came and visited me and took me down to the plant. We've got 500-600 workers that's down there laboring, doing those reactors. They are ready. They're spending the amount down there right now to, to say that, oh, those plants aren't, those 2 reactors, they're not permanent, they're not something that's just in the book. they're spending too much, and I saw with my own two eyes. They're spending way too much money down there at this point to say they're gonna stop it again. There's already $12 billion that was put in and it stopped. They're not gonna put another $5–10 billion into that and then say, well, okay, it ain't gonna work. Let's be realistic. So my thing is talking to other people and people from the Newberry area where they came discuss that with Newberry's council and places like that. They're looking at Jenkinsville being the site. Now, I'm gonna say to all my representatives here, Jenkinsville, we don't want it. Right now, we've got enough. We're going to be living with 3 nuclear reactors that's gonna be producing. And it's not like you get to ship the waste away. It's a known fact there's no nuclear waste graveyard anymore. If you produce it, you store it. So that means we've already got one that's been there 40 years that's got nuclear waste stored there now. What happens when they open 2 more? Now you're gonna have 3 like that. A lot of people, and Councilman Bell, you live there, so you know a lot of people are coming up with cancer, this, that, nobody know why they. It's totally ridiculous. You got a recreational lake there.
Can I say something? He was, oh, I'm sorry.
Is it okay? Well, I was gonna see if,
In addition to what the mayor said, you know, when we think about the western side of Fairfield, when that lake was built, they took away all the property. My backyard used to be a place where we had cows, chickens, pigs, those kinds of things, a place where you could hunt. Well, they took it from us for the betterment of the betterment of the state or whatever. But at the same time, when they took all those things, they actually took the property. And we got families that they moved their homes from one spot to another. They actually did that. and they could say nothing about it. They could do nothing about it. And again, it's in a black neighborhood, a poor area, a poorer area, and if we do research, we see all over the United States wherever there were roads built or freeways built, highways built, they built those places. They took the black property, or they built right upon it, so nobody would want to come there. The tax dollars went down. The projects for homes and things, that the monies went down. All those kinds of things, and they do it in those kinds of neighborhoods all the time. I mean, we get, as the mayor said, we get dumped on a lot, but then at the same time, we have those projects that come in, and all of the tax dollars come right in here to Winsboro. We don't get a dime, and that's really wrong. So and then again, you know, I'm really back at a really simple question. And I read it where it says that the data center, it helps with AI or whatever. Okay. In simplest terms, if I were to talk to somebody, what is it doing? What is an AI? I mean, what is a data center actually doing? Why do we need it? I mean, I understand all these. I understand this is the way that it's going. Well, it's. What can I explain to somebody?
You asked that question, and I don't think it was asked. It was answered.
It wasn't answered.
It wasn't answered. And talking to scientists and researchers, they say the best way, because you know, I said, break it down to me like I'm a second grader. You know, so help me to understand. They said, you have a home computer? I said, yes. All and everything that comes through that computer is what a data center is.
Okay, we got all.
Information goes out. It is one of the things that I'm reserving my judgment about data centers right now, because I'm still pulling information. I'm still getting a lot of information. But the information that we got today was very, very helpful for me, and in addition to helping me to understand that if we, Fairfield County, District 4, do not have a choice, if we do not have a choice, you know, because it's inevitable, it's coming. Whether we are, while we are alive, can make decisions about where it's going to go, where, you know, and when it's going to go there. We should take that opportunity to do that if we can't escape the fact that we can't stop it from coming.
We should.
It is coming.
We should do like Newberry did. They nixed it.
They didn't say no. They stopped it
For a year.
to do more research, and that's what the majority of counties across the nation are doing. Putting a year's moratorium, a 2-year moratorium on it to get additional information. Now, data centers is something that we've just come to understand. Has been doing a lot of our work with our phones, computers, so forth and so on, our banking, all kind of processes. We've just come to learn that we've been using them. We've been processing through this information through this, and again, you know, I encourage the report that I put together will help with the additional information that we got here today. But I want it to be understood that data centers are something that that it appears to be something that a large group of people are opposed to because they don't fully understand them. And once you get to understanding, you can make an informed decision. The water situation, electricity, and all those things are very important.
Generators. They put massive generators in, and
You know, and who's going to pay for it?
but then the quality of the sound, the pollution, all that type of stuff is, and it's, again, right on top of black and poor neighborhoods. And it's that way. Flint, Michigan, just water, simple water. You know, all these kinds of things. It's on us, and what can we do about it? I mean, I'm like Mayor Ginyard now. We simply do not want it. Because it's us. We get the worst end of the stick, and it makes no sense.
And historically, that is true.
I mean, I sit, yeah, I sit here and I watched the documentary about America 250 years. Okay, what happened? They pushed the Indians out. They destroyed black families and all these types of things. America 250. What I mean, what the heck for? You know, because we any of us that have so-called heritage, I mean, it ruined us. And I'm sure, and then they said another thing. And I watched this. It makes no sense at all. The White House, the Capitol, the Jefferson Memorial, all these things were built by black people, but they put all white faces in front. Why? Because they said that they built America, right, on the backs of slaves. And then here we are again now, we're coming to this era, and be honest, I don't care who Trump has pushed us back like he said he would. Now, all these kinds of things going up now, well, just put it in their neighborhood. It don't matter. They don't matter. It's ridiculous. We don't need it.
Can I say something? I think that we need to put a moratorium, Fairfield County does, a year, whatever. And he talked about their surrounding counties, us having a study group, because Newberry put a year's moratorium and Chester put 6 months moratorium. And so I think that the counties need to get together, have a study group, whatever, and come up with some strict guidelines. But the first thing we need to do is put a moratorium out there so it doesn't happen immediately. And I guess county council has to do that.
Yeah, that's exactly. And then it seems like once they get it here, they forget it.
Say, well, let me wait. Do you have anything you want to say, Rand? Okay. Vic, you got anything? Okay, John? Okay. First, AI and data centers are hand in hand. The data centers are the infrastructure or the equipment that stores all of this data. And what it basically doing is getting rid of paper. You know, we had paper around everywhere. So now it's stored in this electronic format. So you go on your phone, you go on your computer, wherever, and depending on which medium you use, you put your question in to give your answer. And I always caution everybody, garbage in is garbage out. So people are afraid that this artificial intelligence is what AI really is going to be taking people's jobs, which it will take some people's jobs, but it's also going to help destroy America and probably the whole world, because it will give you bad information. And if, as doctors and firemen and all these complicated technical professions start to depend on it, and somebody put in a question, and if the question is not in right, it's going to give you bad information out. So that is the big push, is to just get rid of paper and just have people to be able to get information just quick. A lot of academians don't like it. They like people to be able to research. They like you to be able to spend time trying to, you know, figure stuff out, know all the pros and cons. But
Just a lot of law firms that's forbidden the use of it.
okay, yeah. So
Old-fashioned research.
yeah, and the old-fashioned research is what gives you the best information. I think this day hospitals starting to use it. I don't care what nobody said. I know that little boy was using it when my mom passed, and I sit there and watch him, and I kept asking him questions, and I don't think he was putting it in right. I don't think he was getting the answers right. 30 minutes after that, she went into cardiac arrest, and I know that's what did it. So for that reason and many, I just think that we want to move fast, but we know the race is not given to the swift. And we know that's one of the things in life that won't ever change. But in a nutshell, that's pretty much what data centers are. And the push back from them is the long laundry list of things that have not been sorted through. The noise that it makes, you know, and some of this stuff is real. You know, people have been on national TV, and I know everything in Facebook ain't true, and it's a fantasy island and a fantasy world for a lot of people, but it is where a lot of people do air the truth. And they talk about the humming noise that you hear all night long, and you can close the door and you still hear the humming noise. They talk about the fact that with the water, whether water is being recycled once it's used, or whether it's just going somewhere, as the mayor stated, whether it's causing some other type damage, whether you turn your faucet on and you ready to take a shower and the water come trickling, because the data centers, the usage of the water, the actual impact on the grid. I think I was reading, I didn't read it, I saw the heading where in some state they're having a huge problem with the grid. So, and when we were in Newberry, somebody said it to Newberry Electric, you can't even keep the lights on in a bad storm. How you gonna keep the lights on when you got to deal with this infrastructure constantly running? The fact that it can't be shut down more than 4 seconds. So what is going to fire it back up real quick within those 4 seconds? Is it going to be generators? Okay, what kind of pollution are the generators causing? What generator are you going to use? What generator is approved? So it's just a whole lot of unanswered questions in the healthcare issue. Somebody in Newberry spoke to the fact that it could harm unborn fetuses. It could harm pacemakers, and they believe their studies. The mere fact that Erin Brockovich have gotten involved. She's the one that dealt with the pollution that the plant was happening and causing cancer waste somewhere else. So there's a whole lot of unanswered things, and a lot of it may be more scary than what it need be, but we know that the escalation of autism and cancer is real. We know that kidney failure, we know is real. So unless we know where it's coming from, then of course you're going to deal with where you think it's coming from. And one of the things I've asked the cancer research folk here, this cancer group, that is trying to figure out the different causes of cancer here. When I went to a conference and talked to some folk, they said that they need to first determine all the different cancers that exist, then determine what causes all those different cancers. Then once you determine what causes them, then you can determine what in your community might be contributing to it. I don't know if they did it, but to me it's a good start because then you start isolating. So I can't say that VC Summer is causing cancer, but 90% of the people who getting it live in Ridgeway. So, no, I'm just using that for an example. So we got to do our homework, and we got to have real data when we come to approve. I've met with Brookfield. I met with them 2 or 3 times, and I've told them unequivocally that if they start pursuing data centers, that's where they lose me. We've already agreed with which we have a choice, but we do have a choice with data centers. We agreed mostly because we're forced to for the 2 new reactors. Everybody's talking about all the money, but one thing we got to be careful of, County Council, is the money going to come to Fairfield County, or is the money going throughout the whole state? That was the first deal that came when they talked about the nuclear reactor the first time. The state wanted the money to be dispersed everywhere, but thank God Charleston came along and Greenville came along and said, no, we ain't doing that, because if we get a big industry in our community, we ain't sharing the money. We didn't share Boeing when it came through. We ain't share Michelin. We ain't share BMW. We ain't share the nuclear plant that went up there in Fort Mill. So why all of a sudden now you saying we gotta share?
Well, with that, okay, it's coming here, but not the Western. We got a town council over there. We need some of that too. We pay all the bills.
Well, see, the thing is,
and that I mean, it's a true statement that we don't get a dime. And we right on, the nuclear reactors are right on top of us. I go up my
True
back.
statement is
I go out there
7% of the county's entire budget comes from the western side.
okay,
of Fairfield County.
I hear y'all with that, but that's totally different. Y'all have to, that has to be dealt with on a different setting, where the money goes when the money comes in.
Right.
But dealing with whether or not the facility actually comes, that's the developer who decides this is where we're going to put it at. Now, when the tax dollars come in, and that's when you go to your county council folk and the county administrator say, look, this money have come into this county from outside. This is what we need. This is what we need. That was a major reason I was meeting with Brookfield. If it came to the point where we did not have a say-so in it, what kind of community benefits were going to be in place? What are you going to give back to the community if you come here? And they looked me in my face, and we still communicate. At least I think we are. They might be mad because I'm having these meetings, because in order for that plant to succeed, I'm told they're going to have a data center. Now, Carl, I know you stated that it's inevitable that they're coming. Not true. No. County council can stop it. Yeah. County council can decide whether or not that area is going to be zoned for a data center.
That's right.
What I was saying, let me clarify.
Go ahead.
What I was saying is that may not during our time here, because I don't know what's going to happen next tomorrow, or next year. What I was saying may not be during our time period, in our time frame. But I said, but if we don't, if we are at a point in the discussion where we get to make the decision, we get to make the decisions from the list that we have put in place. You can't, and I know all across the country, the discussion is no data center, not in my community, not in my area. And I'm thinking, yes, but at the end of that statement, unless. No data centers unless.
Okay.
And that's what I'm saying.
I got you.
Okay.
But I want y'all to hear me out and let me finish. That's why I let everybody have their say first. But that unless can still be a period. If county council decides no data center in Fairfield County, no data center in Fairfield County, and that's who ultimately gets to make that decision. The scary piece is that I keep hearing conversation that there is land in this county that is being sought after, and even possibly contracts already being put on. And my question is, how is it getting past county council? How is it getting past the county administrator? And I'm going to ask the question, and I'm going to request that it be answered. Otherwise, I'm going to go to the state level, and somebody's going to tell me. Because if you're hiding the fact that you're having the conversation, that in itself says that there are things that's going to be done that is going to not positively impact Fairfield County. And say what you want to say. I try to ride throughout this county, McCormick, Greenwood, Saluda, Newberry. None of those counties have the kind of resources we have and still is as undeveloped as it relates to the per capita as Fairfield County.
Amen.
And it's time that we figure out what we're going to do about it and to allow things to come in the county that we think is going to benefit. And when I hear, oh, we're going to get money from the reactors, oh, we're going to get money from the data center, well, we got money for 40 years from the first reactor. I call it sin money. Why do I call it sin money? Fairfield County was better off before it came than what we are now. Anybody want to challenge me on that? I'm willing to take the challenge on. But Fairfield was way better before that nuclear plant got over there than the 40 years plus that it is over there. So what I'm asking, and I agree with Randy 100%, I agree with you 100%, 2 bills was put up. A Senate bill which dealt more with the development and a House bill which dealt more with the moratorium. Neither one of them passed. That means they died for this legislative year. They can be reintroduced in January for the next legislative year. So I will take the charge and talk to the sponsors and see whether or not they're going to put it back up. In South Carolina, fortunately, unfortunately, whatever the case may be, we are in a 2/3 majority unless something changes in November with the election, which means that most bills that get passed are put forth by Republicans. Most bills. But then the Republican also got to be smart enough to know what they're doing. So don't think that means that you need to go out and vote for my opponent because he's a Republican, because I can promise you, you're going to suffer if you do. Now, and I got the right to put that in there because I called a meeting. Now, the next part is the Senate bill that deals more with the development if we try to push through. Now, what the General Assembly did, and that's why we need y'all to be listening to, and send me texts and say, Annie, what is going on with this? We get over 1,000 bills put up. We don't know which ones are going to come through, but when they come through, we have limited time to read them and do research on them. But when we did that big energy bill last year, I think it was, a year before, somebody knew then what was coming. They knew then that they wanted these data centers. They knew then. So we don't want South Carolina, as we stated earlier, to be a dumping ground. We no longer want Fairfield County to be a dumping ground. We got to have something more than just industry. We got to have rooftops. We got to have people living here. We got to have a school district that's going to accommodate them, and we got to have recreation that's going to keep them here. We need our kids to be more than just staying here shooting guns, and when something negative happens, they always got to point back to Fairfield. Sometimes I say thank God for Sumter, which is where the speaker lives. I don't know why he ain't doing better. Maybe he's doing it to one side of something, not the other side. I don't know. But but y'all, I asked us to convene to have this so we can have the discussion, because I didn't want to see our elected officials, particularly county council, to be threatened the way I saw them threatened in Newberry. And I was in that room when it happened. And 26 people out of 27 literally threatened county council not to pass that data center project. And Mayor Pro Tem, 99.9% of the people in that room was white. Kershaw County, 99.9% of the people was white. I didn't go to the one in Spartanburg, so I'm not sure there. But that means that you dump it in our community, but guess who don't want it? They didn't care about the community, Mayor. They didn't want it in their county, period. Amen. So we need to work together as a county to either say yes or say no. And I'm hearing more no than yes. So how we can convince people, and I know county administrators might think, well, I don't know nothing, but you might be thinking, well, the money did sound good, but I work for county council, which is absolutely true. So y'all have to talk to him and make the decision, but we must get educated. And I think we need to spend time looking at that presentation that says preparedness. If all of these concerns exist, what are we going to put in place? And Randy, if the state doesn't do it, then the county has to do it. Mm-hmm.
Mm-hmm. It's an excellent
Yeah. Wait until, yeah, and then we're making quick decisions. Mm-hmm.
And I put in this reference material,
Okay.
the U.S. Data Center, there's a tracker
Okay,
that we can track the moratoriums across the country
I know where they are.
to see where they are.
But I,
And it's the U.S. Data Center, it's in the
Okay.
U.S. Data Center moratorium tracker.
but I would strongly encourage that you guys at least put that in place, a moratorium until we can see what the state gonna do, if the state does anything in January. So, I mean, I don't know what that would do with the nuclear reactors and what that would do with Brookfield and what they planning on doing, but that ain't our problem. That, the guy that I talked to came from Toronto. He won't be here. He won't be, in Toronto, when it comes to nuclear, is very, very safe. I don't know how safe this is gonna be. That's why I asked the question about what's the difference. I've been told that it's the regulations of EPA, that we had strict regulations when data centers was done a long time ago, Mayor Pro Tem, but now those restrictions are not there. So when those folk get ready to build, they don't have to take nothing in consideration. Go ahead.
Okay, yeah, I want to thank you for having this meeting. I appreciate you doing this. Very, very informative. And I think county council, that we need to put this on the agenda and act soon to put this, at least a year moratorium on it, because we don't know what the state's going to, because it'll be at least next year before that can
At a
happen.
minimum.
At a minimum. And also,
Hold on a sec, Randy. Hold on a sec, let me finish, and then you can, yeah.
yeah, and
But we want to hear what you're saying, so,
yeah, but also, when they were building those two reactors before, how many years ago when it fell through?
7 years.
7 years ago. There wasn't anything about, data centers that I'm aware of then, is that right? I mean, there was
I didn't hear anything.
nothing tied to data centers being, so why is it now? And I don't see I don't think that should be.
Yeah.
You know,
Hold on a sec, Greg. What you were saying, Randy? I thought you were saying something when he was talking, and then. Okay, gotcha. Okay, Mayor.
it's just, I get really kind of, we got too much go along to get along. Let's not be so nice when it concerns our people. You know, when things are not correct, they're not correct. It's just simple as that. If it's wrong, it's wrong. And we don't have to dress it up. We don't have to be afraid to say it's wrong. You know, to say, well, I don't want to create the problem. When you're an elected official, then you're there to address every problem. Don't matter. When something is wrong, it's wrong. It's just that simple. When something's not good for you, it's not good for you. It's just that simple. I mean, you can make up 1,000 reasons why economically it's going to do so much, it's going to do so much. But, for instance, I went to the Nuclear Regulatory Commission. They have this meeting in Jenkinsville every year, every so many years, to address this. They say, okay, we've got our home-based people. The home-based people supposed to live near the nuclear plant. I asked the question, where you live? Oh, I live in Dutch Fork. Oh, I live in Chapin. You don't live in Jenkinsville. How can you say you're the home person when you're in a totally different county? You ain't even living in Fairfield County, period. But you stand up in front of us and say that they're the hometown representatives. You can't represent me and you live somewhere else. So, you know, the thing is, there's so much falsehood and so much undercover stuff going on in everything they do. We need to look at these data centers and see. The stuff need to be uncovered. Because, you know, you come here and you put this stuff here, but then you go live somewhere else. You don't live here, so it's not affecting you like that. Because, you know, that's what I said to the NRC. You're telling me these guys are supposed to be the local NRC representatives, local representatives for us. They're not local. They live in a totally different county. Some in Lexington County, some in Newberry County, some in Richland County. They don't live in Fairfield County, period. So how can you be my representative and you don't live here? You can't represent somebody else if you live in District 41. So how are you going to represent me, say you're in Fairfield County, you don't even live in Fairfield County? It's too many falsehoods, people. It's time for that to stop. It's time for everybody to be fair and do what's probably right and what's best for the county. And leave that friendship stuff alone. And leave that go along to get along stuff alone. And, you know, we representatives. People vote for us to put us in these seats. We should be fair. We should be 100% fair. When something is wrong, it's wrong. It's just that simple. And let's not try to retaliate because there's a person that says that's wrong. And I'm a victim of that retaliation. I'm a victim of retaliation. Well, I know I ain't did nothing wrong, but I'm pinned to that because of who don't like me. But I'll say this, I'll probably never be liked because I ain't gonna change. I ain't gonna go along to get along. It's just that simple.
All right, Mr. Mayor. So, I guess are there any other questions? John, am I telling the truth when I say that if there's any assistance that's needed with county council as far as preparation? Because we need to be ready either way. If at some point, Carl, they decide that they're gonna, what's that word, encroachment, whatever, and force us to accept the data center, then we need to be ready to convene and come together quick and decide what we're gonna put in place so at least we control. But the pushback is that we don't want it. We're gonna push against, y'all don't want it, y'all gonna push against it. I ain't playing neutral, I already told them. They can, yeah, it is. So is that good, John? The cog being utilized to assist, as he kept referencing. Well, y'all better become experts real quick. All right. Okay, if there are no other questions, comments, then this is number one, but we have number two coming. Especially as I figure out what the state is trying to do so we can stay involved and we can know and I can try to have some input in shaping whatever goes in place so it works on our behalf.
Thank you, Representative.
All right.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right. Appreciate it. Yes,
Did you decide to do it?
I did.
No. Okay, all right.
I'm gonna buy there and turn thermal stuff in now.
Okay, where's it in?
Yeah.
Okay, okay. Uh-oh. I hit
I
it.
think you ain't gonna have no trouble.
Wait, you get out there, you do the work, knock on doors. Not like it. A lot of people think he's little jokes.
I've met, I don't know him.
He's a good guy,
Been around him.
just like you, but
I can't understand it.
sometimes experience and longevity
experience is there,
matters.
matters.
And knowing the history and have been around and been involved. I know young people need to come along, but sometimes you need to grow and learn first, not just jump into the ocean.
That's right.
That's what I'm saying. Thank you, they were saying about the little, young child that ran, that's running against Al Newsom. See, 25 years old, he has no life experience. What are you going to?
That's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Well, and you've got a track record of what you can, no doubt.
Okay, all right.
I appreciate it.
Okay. All right, thank you. All right, yeah, 'cause like I told you.
I do, yes. I'm not gonna, I'm not trying to sing you my song, but
Yeah. You good, Becky? I gave you a shout out on Saving Fairfield. Didn't I give her a shout out? I'm gonna get in trouble for it, but I don't care. It was the truth.
What did I do?
I told him how you went out and garnered that money up for Council on Aging last year. And so,
Lord, okay,
yeah, that was your shout out.
okay, I appreciate it. Didn't know anything about it. Do you think we can get the moratorium on Monday night?
We can get it on the agenda. I mean, Clarence wanted to just make sure that it was something the council wanted. It sounds like certainly these three of y'all seem to want it. One here, but I would guess he would support that, so. So I don't know if we can get it on
Okay,
to discuss
okay,
if we want
okay,
one. I'm
okay,
trying to see if we
okay.
can get the actual ordinance up there, but that wouldn't give you all a lot
And I
of
think they
time
work with
to review it. So I would say, let's go ahead and put it on.
to
Just say we want one publicly, and then that
No,
gives
but
you a
if they
month
do,
to look
I'm
through the
gonna ask
ordinance
them to
and
put
then
us
come
on
up
their
with one
radar.
in August.
So if there's anything they need
Ain't
to tell
nothing
us
happening right
specifically,
now, so it's
they,
not like
I think they're
someone's
gonna kinda
knocking
connect
at
with
our
the
door.
call.
We don't have anybody looking, so. Not to my knowledge, okay, and that's,
Look, I ain't got the one more year, but I'm
I
gonna
know
work on that one year.
they're always right. I mean, I'm aware that they look around